Thank
Thanks
you,
so much,
guys.
Sagara. Yes, thank you for hosting us. It's such a delight to be with Centro Upaya, and I'm just so moved to see so many people, some familiar faces, many new faces. And I just want to say that for me, it's such an honor to be going on this journey with you all. Just a very brief overview of what we're going to do today. We will have a little bit of engagement for you at the beginning, and then we'll do a demonstration of the process that Yuri and I use to basically bring people into connection from whatever point of disconnection they start. So you'll get to see a live experience of it, and there'll be a Q&A at the end. And then right at the end, we'll tell you a little bit more about the arc, the 8-week course that we want to teach. And a very brief introduction of me. I'm trained as an anthropologist. I've been practicing nonviolent communication since I was 15, so for most of my life at this point. And I teach NVC and run the lab for listening alongside Yuri, who has a very different yet compatible background. And I'll let him tell you a little bit more about himself.
That's right.
Over
Thank
to
you,
you.
Thank you. And hello, everybody. I'm looking forward to meeting everyone a little bit more over the course of the next hour. And I'll keep my biography fairly short so that we can get right into it, so that everybody can start learning and seeing what Nethra and I are all about. But I work as a designer for companies that are large, small governments all over the world. And I teach at Stanford, at the Harvard Business School, and a little bit at UCB. And Nethra and I met when we first started teaching at Stanford. And we've taken bits and pieces of our class as well as from our experiences and have created the Lab for Listening, which we're trying to just make it more accessible to people all over the world. And we get to connect with amazing organizations like Centro Upaya, where we can, do this work for more people. So, without further ado, our day today is going to really be based around getting that familiar feeling again of what it really means to be heard and what it feels like to be in connection with people. And then feeling that when it falls apart, and when you feel misunderstood or misheard and you're in conflict, and then potentially ways on how to bring that back into that nice feeling of connection again. So one way that we like to start off, usually just to make sure that everyone is feeling comfortable and present, is could I ask everyone on the count of 3 to either unmute themselves or to type in the chat. And what we're going to do is just say a big hello to everybody out there as a big group all at once. And you can either unmute and speak, or you can just type in the chat if that's more comfortable for you. Or you could just get to enjoy the noise of a lot of people saying hi to each other. But so on the count of 3. 3, 2, 1.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we're gonna basically jump right into it. What I would love for everyone to start doing is to just take a moment, 30 seconds, just to yourself, and think of a time on when you felt connected to someone else, when you felt really heard, when you felt very understood, and you felt like you had a shared connective experience with another person. And you can either just think about it. If you want, you can write it on a piece of paper. This is just for yourself, for you to think about, and to just get in touch with a memory of what that actually feels like, and try to get an embodied sense of it.
And now just allow yourself to feel that experience. And then we want to ask you to think about a different experience, which is to think about a time or a person where there was disconnection and there was conflict. And I want you all to imagine or remember what it feels like to really want to connect with someone and not be able to get there. What is it that they said or did that gave you that experience? What was it that you were really wanting that you couldn't access with this person? And to get I wouldn't think of the most traumatic experience, but something that just gives you a sense of what disconnection feels like. And we want to ask you to try a little experiment with us, which is to imagine what it would be like to have the feeling that you had at the beginning when we asked you to think about connecting with someone. Imagine having that feeling of connection and understanding with the person you're in conflict with. Sometimes it can be hard to imagine this, but what would it be like? Consider the possibility that that sense of synergy, energy, connection could actually be found in the context of conflict. And we'd like to ask you to come back into the room, to take some deep breaths, to sort of let that feeling pass through your body. And just share with us either, unmute yourselves if you would like to do that, or type in the chat. What does connection feel like for you? What does it mean for you to be understood, to be heard, to feel really, connected to someone else? And sometimes a way to do that is to think about the difference between the moment of connection and the moment of disconnection. So if you want to also articulate that difference, we're open to it. Carol says unity. Leah says
Special,
intimate.
safe, hopeful versus despairing, and a relief. Absolutely.
Anna says seen without judgment. Angela says like floating.
Oh, Susanna says there's a feeling of proximity, open heart warmness. Leah says less lonely.
Teresa says accepted despite my human imperfections. And what about the other side of the fence? What does it feel like to be disconnected? To be misunderstood? Sagar says separate.
Hurt,
Angela
despair,
says hurt, despair.
sadness, contracted and hidden and painful. This is a very, very, very different set of words than the first one. A treadmill with no horizon.
Georgiana says rejected. Teresa says, it feels like a burning sensation on my skin, frustration and despair. So for me, what this brings up is that there is a kind of chasm. There's a chasm of difference between that feeling of being seen and understood in a sense of unity and that sense of separation when things have fallen apart. And as some of you said in the chat, in terms of that feeling of burning on one's skin, it can be a very embodied experience. It can be something that's not so cognitive, but one's stomach might clench. You might want to run away from the room. Whereas when there's connection, you actually want to lean in. And that is the two, so the two sides of that chasm. And then what do we do with the void in between? And the thing that we want to share with you today is that the purpose of our class, the purpose of all the work we do, is to support people in bridging that chasm, to go from that feeling of disconnection and conflict to that feeling of connection with other people. So that's what came up for me. Yuri, is there anything that you wanted to add?
Absolutely. Susanna, at the very end, you said helplessness in the stone heart, and Leah, you said being judged. To me, when there's a time of conflict or when you feel very disconnected from another person, it can almost feel impossible to create that bridge, or there is so much history behind that one conflict that you're in now that surely there's nothing can be done to get out of it. And part of what our class is going to be doing and what Nethra and I are going to demonstrate today in some way is that there are, at first it feels like small skills and techniques, not quite tricks, and it's not quite these like little psychological shortcuts to get people onto your side or to build connection just for fun. What it really comes down to is that we practice a lot of these little skills, but it comes to a mindset where it is possible to empathize and to build empathy and to build these bridges in any sort of situation, no matter how dark or laden with emotions or history it may seem.